If your business is the earth, you are the sun that it revolves around. So many of us have it backwards. We think that we are here to try and revolve around our businesses. And that is what keeps us in a really unhealthy cycle of busy work, of burnout, of putting out fires, not realizing that so many of the issues that can come up in business actually originate with us. Our own fear, our doubt, our default patterns, self sabotaging patterns, they are all playing a part in the decisions that we are making in our business. And while we obviously don't have a say in the circumstances that are surrounding us, everything else in our lives, the results that we're seeing, are a result of all the decisions that we have ever made. And as business owners, we are constantly making decisions, even if we don't realize we're making them. In fact, often not making a decision is a decision in itself. And all of these things can add up to us building what I call a wounded business, a business that's limping along and that is suffering all because your own wounds, your own insecurities, and your own misaligned decisions have then been poured into the architecture of your business, the strategy of your business, how you're marketing yourself. And there is this direct connection between how you are operating in the world and how your business is going to succeed or not. So, today we are going to hold up a mirror to what's been going on and make sure that we get out of these unhealthy patterns. I was going to say once and for all. It's not necessarily that we magically get ourselves out of these permanently, but the more important thing is that we have an awareness of them so that we can catch ourselves in the act moving forward. For instance, you are committed to a marketing strategy. You're like, yep, I'm going to show up, I'm going to do this thing, I've got the plan in place. And as soon as you start, it starts to feel a little bit heavy, a little bit difficult. You're like, I'm not getting the results. Oh, hang on. And then you open up your feed and you're scrolling, and this ad pops up for this magical sounding solution that is about templates or some AI thing or Instagram prompts that's going to make your life easier. And you're like, oh, I'm going to do that. That'll make all of the difference. And then we pivot our plan a little bit. We get a little distracted. Then we're plodding along again and it's still not feeling good. And then you notice, oh, but there's this other thing that I could be doing. And then you move over there. And there is always this shiny object that is calling us away from the original plan we've made. Maybe you're someone who, out of fear, instead of putting yourself out there and committing to this thing that you know would be really good for your business, you're like, I probably should just find a course that teaches me exactly how to do this first so I get it right the first time. Or maybe I should actually just hire someone to do it for me. Or one of my favorites, this is one I've done way too many times. You are mid launch or mid whatever it is that you are putting out into the world. And as soon as it looks like you're not going to get the results that you thought you were going to get, you're like, I'm just going to take a pause on this. I've realized it's not actually the right time to launch this thing. I think I need to make a few tweaks, and I'm just going to, yeah, we'll just pretend that never happened. All to just avoid public humiliation and having to admit defeat, even though you don't actually know whether or not that thing was going to succeed. The point is, you don't want to stick around long enough to find out. These are just a couple of the common patterns that can play out in business when we are letting our fear and our doubt run the show. And it's really important to know, like, before we start attacking ourselves and criticizing ourselves and blaming ourselves, it's important to know that anything that looks like self sabotage is always a form of self protection. The issue is that while our ego, or that part of us that is coming in and telling us that we should probably go do this thing instead because that's going to be safer, that's going to keep us protected, it doesn't necessarily have elevated wisdom. It is operating from some sort of fear program. And so, if it is actually taking us to some other thing that is pivoting our plan that could have actually worked if we'd seen it through, but then it gets us to start this new thing, that self protection is actually becoming sabotage. It's actually harming you in the long run because you're not able to get the results that you need to get. And so, understanding that these self sabotaging patterns, they're not your fault. We all have these fears and these doubts, and we've had experiences in the past that we carry with us, and business and really personal branding and visibility in general. It is going to be the thing that brings out the worst of your wounds, of your shadows. Like, nothing can lurk under the surface for too long when you're doing something like this, because what you're doing is you're being courageous. You're putting yourself out there. You're putting yourself in positions where there is risk, We are always risking failure, humiliation, rejection when we're running a business. So, of course, this is going to happen. But the good news is we don't have to let these self-sabotaging patterns run the show any longer. One of the biggest keys is self-awareness, because just by seeing a pattern and naming it, it already gives us so much power to do something about it. Like I said, you'll still probably fall into the pattern plenty of times in the future, but you'll know what you're doing and you have the opportunity to call it out and make a different choice instead. I've actually found that over my years of coaching clients, there are 11 patterns in particular that are the things that are most likely to sabotage your results in business or in a personal branding journey. I named these the 11 anti-magnetic archetypes because these are archetypal patterns that live within all of us. We could literally have access to all 11 of these, but we normally have one, two, maybe three of them that tend to be our go-tos. I have a free quiz that I set up so that you can find your own primary pattern and then see how you scored in the other 10 categories as well. And I highly recommend you do that after this particular lesson, because that is already going to arm you with so much awareness. I also have a library of content all about each of those archetypes on my website that is all available for free. So definitely put that on your to-do list. Consider that part of your homework for today. But the other half of our agenda today is to really talk about decision making. Because like I said, the results that we are getting in business right now, other than those few things that we can't control, like yes, there's stuff going on in the world, something might have changed in your market, there are factors that are playing out that we don't have control over. But our ability to make decisions to navigate what is going on right now, that will be the difference between success and a lack of success. We do not need the circumstances to magically change around us for us to change our own circumstances in business. It will absolutely require grit and resilience. It will require strategy, agility. We need to be able to adapt. When things around us change in business, one of the main reasons we can get stuck and struggle and suffer through whatever's going on is because we insist on still doing things the old way and then panicking when they're not working, instead of going, oh, okay, things have changed. I probably need to change my strategy too. So, your ability to make high quality, aligned decisions as a business owner, in my opinion, is going to be the highest value skill that you can develop, with copywriting a close second. Okay, your ability to articulate your value. So I want to do an exercise with you first, and then I'm going to give you a framework that you can take with you and keep and refer to for the rest of eternity. And it will help you, because this is one that I have developed through lots of painful mistakes. The first exercise we're going to do is a decision audit. I want you to get more familiar with your approach to decision making, doing a bit of a reflective where we look back on some decisions that turned out really well and some decisions that may have backfired, and starting to unpack the difference between them, not the circumstances around them, but the way you approached those decisions. And so I've got a few prompts for you. And honestly, this is an exercise you could do every single year as like part of an annual review, because you can look at the decisions you made in your business, the ones that went great, the ones that didn't go great, and continue to refine your process and find ways to make sure that, okay, like this poor decision was because I was ABC, and you can make sure that in future you add this to your decision making framework to avoid these kind of outcomes as best as possible. So here are the questions for you. So I want you to come up with 2 to 3 past decisions that had positive outcomes and 2 to 3 that had negative outcomes. And these are like bigger decisions, but they do not have to be to do with your business. They could be to do with decisions around relationships, around moving house, jobs that you got, investments that you made. Like, where did you end up having buyer's remorse versus where were you like, oh, this is the best money I've ever spent? Those kinds of things. Once you have them in mind, these are the questions I want you to answer for each of them separately. So, how easy was it to make this decision? Do you remember? Obviously, some of these are going to be further away and you won't remember all the details, but just do your best here. What was your decision making process. So, how long did it take you to make the decision? What influenced the decision? Can you remember what the different factors were that were playing into this? And did you make the decision alone or did you make it with assistance? Like, did you have soundboards? Were you making it as a joint decision? Did other people influence you? Do you remember what state of mind and or emotion you were in when you made this decision? And can you remember any physical sensations or other clues as you were making the decision? Like for instance, for me, sometimes when I'm making a decision, like I feel this like kind of clenching, contractive feeling. Other times I'll feel like butterflies and I'll feel light and like, oh, this is a great feeling. So often my body tells me so much about how this decision is going to pan out. I've also had times where I felt like this pressure on my head when I'm thinking like I need to do something, but then I'm resisting making the decision. So see if you can remember any of these things. And obviously, these are great questions to then keep in mind for when you are making a future decision as well. Because sometimes we do need to develop our ability to pay attention to these signals. Once you have mapped that out for all of them, I just want you to look at that and go, okay, what are the common threads? Was there anything that these poor decisions had in common? And were there any that the positive ones had in common? And based on that, what do I want to bring forward? Like, what am I learning from this that I can use for future decision making opportunities? And speaking of future decision making opportunities, I mentioned a framework that I want to give you. There are always red flags when it comes to decisions that we shouldn't be making or shouldn't be making it in that direction or where we're making it in a timeline that is misaligned. And I wanted to give you a list that you can cross reference because often when we are in any sort of fear or under a little bit of pressure, we can just not think clearly. And so this is to make sure that you have like a backup brain for you that will help reflect to you because this is all about a mirror. I just want you to have clear perspective. These will reflect to you some things that you should be aware of that might give you a clue. Let's slow down. Let's get another opinion or something like that. So these are what I call the decision danger zone checklist. By the way, I realized I haven't mentioned this in a while. If you want all of these prompts and these lessons in a text format that's easy to reference, you can get that for free by heading to magneticbrand.co/reset. I'll make sure that there is a link below this episode so that you can go check that out. So here's the list. 1, do I feel like I don't have any other option? Just know that this is the worst red flag. Like if you are in victim mode, if you are feeling powerless and you're like, there is no decision to be made, I have to do this thing. No, that's a lie. Of course, there are consequences to every single decision we make, whichever direction we go. If we ever think that there aren't any consequences, that is also a lie, by the way. But just know that if you feel like you don't have any other options, whoa, stop. Do not make that decision. Keep inquiring. There are other options. You just may not want to pay those consequences, and that is fine. But it's so important that we make decisions actually feeling like we had a choice in the matter. Next question is, have I done thorough research on this? Now, obviously, there will be some decisions that just don't require research, but anytime it's, involving some sort of business decision, if it involves you investing money, committing to something long term, if there's legal jargon involved, there absolutely should be research. But then even things like signing up to use an AI tool, have you done research in how that company operates? What are their privacy policies? Do they have any commitments to offsetting the damage that they're doing to the world through their softwares? So it's really important for us to try to do research and make sure it's from more than one source. So my actual prompt says from at least 3 sources is how we're going to consider this to be thorough research. Because if we just go from 1 or 2, we could just be getting that biased view. So make sure that, if you're looking up what you want to know about some software that you're thinking of signing up for, don't just read the information on their website. Look at things like Trustpilot and see what other people are saying about this software. People who've had poor experiences and who've required customer service and then found out there was no customer service, etc. Next question is, am I feeling particularly anxious, desperate, or even overly excited? Now, obviously, when we're in a state of anxiety or desperation, we know that that could be distorting our perception of things and we could be making misaligned decisions from that. But the same as if we're overexcited, because if we are really hyped up and overly optimistic about something and we haven't taken the time to do that research, to think about consequences, to think about the fine print, then that is also a major red flag. Is someone pressuring me to make this decision quickly? Oof, that is a no from me. If ever you feel like, oh, if I don't make this decision in the next couple of hours or in the next 24 hours, or someone's making you sign on the dotted line in the moment, that is a red flag in itself. Because if they're rushing you, they know that there is a chance that if you go away and you consider it, you'll realize that this is not the right direction to be moving in. So beware of anything that feels under massive time pressure. Obviously, aside from the ones where it's you have to because some emergencies happen and you're having to make a decision on the spot. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about that false sense of urgency and scarcity that often comes from salespeople and, marketing materials. Am I making this decision to make someone else happy? This is where like the people pleasing and the guilt wound can play in. We've got to be really careful about who we're making this decision for. Now, it's not to say it would be wrong to make a decision that is influenced by how someone else is going to fare in this situation, but just make sure that you are actually factoring in how you're going to feel about this too. Be really mindful of not making decisions from a place of martyrdom and feeling like the victim of like, well, I'm just going to have to make this for the other person because if they're not happy, then I can't be happy, because that in itself is problematic. And does what's being promised or what I'm imagining seem too good to be true? So this is related to that overly optimistic thing, but be mindful if anyone is guaranteeing crazy results in what seems like an unusually short amount of time, chances are it's not true. One really old school example is that there used to be a lot of SEO companies that would promise that they could get you on the front page of Google within however long, like a short amount of time if you signed up to work with them. They didn't specify what results you were showing up for. So that it turned out that they were saying, yes, you're on the front page for like these different search terms that were very niche, very random, and not helpful for growing your business. So anytime it just feels a little too good to be true, like, oh, phew, all my problems are going to be solved. Everything that I've been worrying about could be solved through this one thing. No, it can't. No, it can't. Okay. So that is again where we need to do our research and just think rationally about, okay, well, how long does it take other people to do this? And is there anyone else in your life who's tried this before who can speak to the realities of what their results were? Now, this final one isn't necessarily a red flag, but it is something that is important for us to keep in mind when we're talking about pattern spotting. Does this situation feel familiar at all? Have I found myself running through a similar process in the past? What I mean by this is, are you considering doing something, like taking some sort of action, signing up for something, paying, investing in something, and it's related to you trying to solve a similar problem to what you've tried to solve in the past, and you're trying to solve it in a really similar way? Like, is there a pattern in place where when things are feeling tough and it doesn't seem like you're getting results, you immediately look for the next platform that you could be signing up for? Are you someone who's like, oh, I clearly don't know what I'm doing. I've got all sorts of insecurities about my marketing ability. I'm going to just have to hire someone to help. But then last time the person you hired didn't help you either. I've literally had clients who have come to me. I mean, they didn't end up becoming clients, but I had potential clients who would say to me, oh, I've worked with 5 copywriters so far and they were all just so disappointing. And I'm hoping you're the one that's going to be different. When I first heard that, I was like, oh, yes, of course I am. Like, oh, you poor thing being wronged by all these copywriters. And then down the track, I realized, wait, it's the client. They're the problem. Like there is the common thread. So we've got to be really careful that what we're doing isn't a pattern that is just playing out over and over again. And so if we do notice that this feels familiar, it's not that we aren't going to go in that direction, but what we're going to do is, okay, well, what was the situation in the past that was like this? How did I navigate it? How did it turn out? And what did I learn from it? And what can I apply from that situation to what I'm going through today? Is there maybe something that I could do differently to last time to make sure I'm not falling into this same pattern? And that's where sometimes it is helpful to have a sounding board, have a neutral party who's able to reflect back to you blind spots, and which you can't see, because that's the point. It's called a blind spot because the person who's playing this pattern out can't see it. Now, I've already basically specified this, but I want to really drill this point home that it is almost impossible to make an aligned decision when we are in a place of fear, anxiety, overwhelm, or desperation. As business owners, that is often the time when we're in the most hurry to make a decision because we just want to get out of whatever it is that's going on. But it's important to remember that there are no quick fixes, not in the way that we think they can be solved. And when we make the decision from that place, it often comes with consequences down the track that we haven't considered that set us back a lot further. I know that so many of my clients, it's not just the investment that they're making in that moment that often ends up costing them, it's the opportunity cost. It's that whatever decision they made to pivot, to run away, to jump into something new means that the thing that they were working on, that original plan, never has the chance to build momentum and to lead to incredible results. Instead, they start a new thing or they start trying to juggle multiple things. So, in that moment, when you are in the biggest hurry to make the decision, this is something I have been learning over and over throughout the years. The most important thing to do is nothing. The most important thing to do is get grounded, try and get out of the fear response and back into your body and making sure you are actually seeing things clearly. And instead of jumping to action, try to take in more about what is actually going on. Give yourself the time to ride that emotional wave, potentially bring someone else in to confide in, not to tell you what to do, but just to provide some extra perspective if you feel like you're spiraling, and just pause. Sometimes it's enough to pause for a couple of hours. Sometimes we need to pause for a couple of days. Honestly, sometimes in business, I found like the period that I've been in over the last sort of 9 or so months when I've been in this very slow building process. Every couple of weeks, I will have the urge to jump, to do something drastic, to try and look for a way to speed things up. And I will start to consider pivoting my plans. And then I'm like, whoa, we made a plan for a reason. Nothing needs doing right now except for me to follow through with this plan. And so that is what I encourage you to do. Now, I have got a bonus little meditation for you, a really quick one, designed for when you are in those moments of panic to just help bring you back down to earth. I'm not saying the meditation is going to magically give you answers, but it will hopefully get you back into your body, seeing things from a different perspective, and then will make it easier for you to decide what to do next. And often, whatever you decide to do next will be a much less dramatic action than your initial instinct told you to take. So I will make sure that that link is down below as well. And if you want a downloadable version that like isn't going to have YouTube interrupting you with ads and things like that, sign up for the free email version of this course and I will send that to you in like an MP3 that you can download and you can just save it to your device and listen to it whenever you want. But for now, I hope that this was helpful and that this is going to start to allow you to just start making better decisions as you move forward, knowing that with business, it's never about making one perfect decision and having one perfect strategy and then just having a straight line all the way to the finish. It is about our ability to keep making micro adjustments, course corrections as we go, but to not make them so drastic that 1 second we're heading in this direction, now we're heading in this direction, and then before we know it, we have no idea where we are. It's about often doing less and making more baby step kind of decisions and actions. And that is the thing that gets us to the finish line faster, even though it feels really slow. So thank you for bearing with me. Thank you for trusting this process. And I will chat to you on the next one.